Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Well, I was going to move on to a wildlife or a western today, and but then my daughter wrote me and said she's getting a lot of requests at our studio back here in Pennsylvania for spring flowers. I think everyone is getting a little tired of the snow, including myself. So what I thought I'd do is just a real quick painting today. We'll paint some spring flowers. What we're going to do, I don't really have an idea, but what I went out and I got a couple of just photos. These are just bouquets and stuff, and you have daisies and wildflowers, and I don't know if that's dianthus up there or not. But lots of just little wildflowers, lots of this color, and of course I always like to do the queen of all flowers, a rose in that. So let's put some of these different flowers together and see if we can give a spring look to it. Okay, I have basically a square board here, 14 by 14 or 15 by 15, whatever you want to do, something around there. David, a couple of coats of the Heritage. This is what I use here, the Heritage MultiMedia, the canvas prep medium. So I use that. I have my standard colors out here. These are the YouTube colors. They're all listed. Everything I use is listed down in the video description. You can go over to our Amazon store or our Jansen Art Studio, our Jansen Art Store online store, and if you have any kind of questions, just email us there, and they'll answer it for you. Okay. All right, so I have that down. It's a white. And I want to take it off white. I want to put in some warms and some cools. We'll have some fun. So let's get going. I'm going to take, one thing I should put out too, I haven't, is the open medium, the Daravan open medium. Now, Daravan open medium works with our formula because they are the company that manufactures all of our acrylics for us. So we all know that the extender, okay, this is the extender medium I have out in the little cap right here. The extender medium works with it, the open medium. Daravan manufactures our paint for us down in Sydney, Australia. Fantastic company. We've had a very long decades working relationship that I really appreciate them so much. They're a great, great company. But let's get into some of this, okay? So I'll take just some water, big 2-inch wide fusion brush, nice soft brush. Let's take and let's not mix it up too well here, and we'll put on some warm and cool colors here, just moving through the palette here. And I love to do this. I did this last year on a painting, and where I used these two colors to create kind of this background, and I loved it so much. I put it up in our dining room where I see it every day. I just absolutely love it. Let's take a little bit heavier color here, and we'll model this together just a touch more, maybe a bit of extender. I use extender, and not to keep it wet here, but just to create a slipperiness to the paint. Okay, just a slipperiness to the paint here. And so we'll push on, and see, I just love light. I'm varying the pressure of my brush to get some of this skipping and stuff. Just creates, I'm just looking for different types of movement. Now, I'm going to put some movement in like this because I'm envisioning a rose sitting right in here. That's going to be my queen of this composition. It's going to be here. I want her not quite in the center, just left of center here. And then I'll put some others, maybe even a nice tulip, maybe some of these little blue flowers up like this. Maybe we'll pull down a couple of the larger daisies or something, like this little one turned down there. So, we'll look at some of that. But what you do with the Dutch, and I spent so many years studying the Dutch, and the Dutch put in what's called St. Andrew's cross, which was they would cross movements in their flower bouquets, in these magnificent bouquets. They would cross movements to create interest. So if I have the rose is going to lead your eye this way, and a brush mark like this, a powerful mark like that, will lead your eye that way, and those two crossing lines will create X marks the spot. Does that make sense? Or a cross, and they called it St. Andrew's cross. Let me rinse some of that out, since that's a nice big expensive brush. I like that. Okay, so let me just show you. So I'll leave some of this here. I'll just wipe some of this back up. Now, so the rose, let me just show you rose. Let me just take a little bit of the quinacridone here. We might even add just a touch of the red violet to it. But so wherever I put this center on this rose, wherever I put the center, that is where your eye is going to go. So see, if I push this center in like this, let's just soften that edge. But I'll put that center there, and then our bowl is going to come down here. See, you've got a motion this way. Your eye looks this way. And so I've got a background motion this way. So it puts in a lot of contrast right in that area. Does that make sense? And that's one of the things, you know, for years when I was trying to paint, trying to find somebody, you know, how do you know how to design? Well, that's one reason why I painted so many years in the Dutch masters, because they had rules. They had rules where petals and placement of petals and everything, how it takes a viewer through a visual journey through the painting. So let's say we're going to do some of these beautiful blues. They're blues, blue violets. Let's take a bit of this color and maybe some extender here. This extender just to make it this kind of bluish purple color here. And I'm gonna model this with some other color. So maybe a little bit more violet than what I see. But let's put some of this in here. Have some fun, right? Let's just have some fun. And we'll go up to a blue violet. Let's lighten that just a bit here, okay? So let's just push in some of this, if this is going to be a spray of flowers. See, what I'm doing is just tapping and moving my brush. Now, I'm using a number 8 flat. And I like the flat. You know, you've seen me paint those California poppies that we did that have just been so popular. You saw me do those California poppies with the filbert. I use the filbert a lot, and I use the flat. If I have rounded type of petals, I use a filbert. If I have just where I want to get a super casual look to something, I tend to use a flat. I like the flat. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this purpley violet right down in here, and see, I'll use my paper towel to soften it out. And what I'm going to do more than anything else, so I put it up here. In color theory, this would be considered an isolated color. So one of the first things I do is, what I created in color theory, what I've been doing for 40 years in painting is, once I express a color, I then move a color. So I will move some of that color, and it doesn't have to be an object, it can be a background. But I'll move until I see that color moving through the composition some way here. Just the little sparks of color. See, that's what I like to do. So those would be kind of pretty there. Now, it might be great to put a yellow daisy or some yellow flowers right here. And the Dutch would do that. They called that karat, which is a contrast, a type of contrast, where if you have one color, you'd put another color, its complement, which purple and yellow are complements, the violets and yellows. And so within a certain range of each of those flowers, usually within a flower's width, they'll put those two together to contrast. So let's try that. Let's take a little bit of yellow. We don't know what kind of flowers these might be, daisies or whatever. We'll take a little yellow oxide, a little bit of the Hansa, and we'll push some yellow in there. And I like that. And of course the queen can have a little bit inside of her as well. The background warmth of this background is going to be kind of warm, and so carrying some yellows, that burnt siennas and stuff through there is okay. But we'll just move some of that color through. So I'm going to express some flowers here and let those others just kind of come down through here. Yeah, I might do some kind of violets or reds or something down here too. Let's develop this just a little bit, and we'll see, right? Okay, so let's take some white and some yellow. That's beautiful gray tones. See those gray tones? I want to leave this slightly to the yellow side here. This will make a beautiful tone to start, and it's almost the background here, to start this rose. And so I'm going to build up the body of the rose here a bit, the bowl of the rose here, right? And you know, we just might put we're going to do maybe a tulip up here. So we might do a secondary rose right here, and then some, or maybe even, see, you can change your mind. This is early for you to paint. You can change your mind. So maybe we'll do another kind of a rose right here, and then we'll do some of those white flowers there. But maybe a tulip or something coming up over here would be pretty, because the tulips, you're just thinking of spring flowers. So maybe like a orange kind of a tulip. So we'll take some Diarylide, a little bit of red, some of these softer colors. Let's see what an orange would be like right up over here. Because we can, tulips are great because they have a lifting power to it here. And so pushing a few of those out here would be kind of neat. Tulips over there, some daisies and stuff over here. So let's move the color. Let's just move the color. Push it into your background. Move the color around. You could have a little spot of it up here or something. There you go. So that color moves around. Now we'll go back. And again, you know, the queen, she can always have a little bit of all that color, right? See, all of that works in there. Let's go back. Let's add a little bit more here to our queen. We'll add a little lighter color. And what I do is I'm just building up the bowl here. I'm just going to build the bowl of the rose here. Let's just strike a little more color there. And let's pull the width of her petals out here. Right out here like this. I'll blur those off a bit. And so I make the strike. So I have just this dirty white. I make the strike wherever I want it heavier in the first. And so that first mark is going to come down, making the front edge of the, then I'll lift the pressure off of my brush and let that get softer as it goes back. And so that causes the petal to recede. If it doesn't recede enough for me, I just run my finger through it a bit and make that softer edge there. Let's pull out and make some more powerful. We want our queen. We're going to have quite of a busy little composition here. So we want her to be, to have a lot of power to it. So I love that little bit of violet coming through there. And soft, and let's just, so we'll build up this main petal here. Let's dirty this up a bit, maybe even a little bit of that orange and a little bit of that violet, gray it up, and let's just softly push in the back here. Build up her size a bit. So I'm looking at the size of it. This is going to be, she's going to be about the size of my fist here. It's actually big enough to control the composition here. Now, let's go back. Let's warm and add a little more color right in here, which warm it as it comes out of that deeper center. Some of these colors, let her color, get a little more color into this queen rose here. Those of you that, if you've painted through the 30 days of roses, where I challenged everybody to paint all different kinds, you'll hear me refer to the queen. Every time we do a composition that has a set of roses in there, you'll hear me refer to the queen. And I look her at the queen. She's going to dominate the composition of our spring flowers here. So I want to make sure that I paint her correctly here with the colors that will allow her to do that. Let's set one right back here. Maybe a soft little bit. Let's just take a little extender, a little bit of these dirty colors. See, I'll just paint her with the dirty grays that come from these colors here. So, and you know, so like this one's just a little bit more pink than the other one. And so I set the bowl, I set the roundness of the bowl a little bit around to the back, and I'm just using small little marks here to kind of set in the suggestion of the petals. I don't need to have a whole lot right now, but that'll set those. Now, some of this is not quite enough, so I'm just going to come back over here and redress. Little extender. I use the extender to keep this slipperiness to it. I don't want this to get too overpowering, but I'm going to carry some of that color through the composition there a little bit more, so you pick it up through the composition. I can even use a bit of that back up over here. Maybe that just picks up over there. That'll be kind of nice. Yeah. Oh, it would be really pretty to maybe do one of those poppies and stuff back there that we painted the last couple of lessons. That'd be pretty. Let's put a little bit of that violet. That's kind of a pretty color in there as well. Okay. And I'm going to go a little deeper with my red violet and quinacridone violet, maybe a little open medium. Now I use the open medium so the color stays a little thicker and wet here. And I'm going to use this slippery, wet feeling to it so I can push it around a little bit. Sometimes I like to stroke the color around. Sometimes I like to just push it around. And when I want to push it around, I love the feeling of the open medium because it's really slippery and thick. And it's kind of really easy to push things around. Let's put a bit of that into the bowl. So I get the center and the bowl shadow. Like those of you that are rose painters, you know, you'll see me constantly do stuff like that. Let's push a little bit of that through some of this. Little bit. See, I just kind of, that's the prettiness of painting the alla prima and the real casual look of the painting. I love doing that. Let's go back up here. Let's build a little heavier here, a little heavier onto this rose. Right up here. That's pretty nice. I'm going to put a little more grayness right down here. They suggest that bowl just a touch more. Then we'll come down and build that petal. The tip of it, lifting off, and so I'm touching and lifting off before I get to that bowl shadow. You don't want to pull it all the way down because you want to leave that little bit of shadow, because if you pull it all the way down, you'll flatten your rose. So if you think that your roses start to look flat, you may be eliminating too much of your shadow. Always make sure you see that shadow and you'll be okay. Right in there like that. And I want everything here to be light and airy and movement, so I'm not going to play around with it too much. I'm going to take a little bit of this and a little bit of the yellow, make a nice kind of a gray again, and I'm going to reset some of this shadow here right in by that bowl. Just reset some of that. I like that deepness there, deep dark, so let's express a bit more of it right into that shadow. So on the Queen Rose here, I'll paint her several times until I get the look that I want to have, right? Okay, let's push a bit of this gray right back here. That gray is really important to cause receding edges. Let's take a little gray and a little bit of the light here, and let's just add a few petals moving around this center here, okay? And so I just touch a little tiny one and then a little bigger one and just move little half circles here and push. I like to push my finger around in little half circles there, keeping that really casual, just really, really casual. Let's do a little bit more light up here into the front here. Don't lose that shadow. Okay, let's add a bit more of a petal here. This may be even a second run of petals there. Okay. You can do it as one or two or multiple or more layers of it there. Just kind of I paint for more than anything else of creating petals. I paint the movement of the petals. So here I touch the brush and then I turn the brush, and what I try not to do, guys, is always make the same type of mark. I'm always kind of turning and moving and using different points. So I came like this, and then I came right down to the chisel, and that created what looks like another little petal right in there. It just happens. And that's what I've found over the time that I like. And that's when I say it's so important. I paint for the movement of the rose, and I let what happens happen. And what happens to you, and I've told you this 1,000 times in other classes, you're looking at mine and you go into a copy mode and you try to copy it. But see, you'll get the prettiest flower if you, okay, he's coming down making a mark this way. And what I'm doing is just using different corners and edges of my brush as I make these marks. Now I'm going to come in here specifically and add a shadow mark right in there, which will cause that petal to come out even more. But that right there was not planned. That was just me painting the movement of the flower coming down that way. And what happened, happened. And that's how I paint the most naturalistic roses, is I let what happens happen. And now as I come around this edge, it's going to become softer and stuff down this side. Does that make sense? And I'll come here and I'll pick up a little edge of the light, and I can come up here and I can use like the corner edge of my brush, and I can push it to the softness, and I can widen out the petals, see, there's a little bit of texture here that I'll roll over onto that edge and draw that petal edge in right there. And I'll soften and push that out to where I like it. Sometimes I'll just run through that a little bit. It's a little straight. I like a little more curvature to it. That's better. Sometimes you'll see me like take the little edge, a little dot like this, and just come around to the back and the back edges here and give just a little mark to lighten up that rose a bit. Maybe a touch more. I'll pick up right here where the color's really thick. Or I'm going to show you some real thick painting techniques too. I think they'd be very fun for us to do. And I'll build a little more color right in there. I kind of like that. Let's take a little more thick color right in here. And we'll build just some color movements here of that rose coming that way. So that's kind of pretty. Sit it in there. Kind of real pretty little rose. Let's gray down. Let's get some of our, didn't mean to put that violet there quite that heavy. A little blue, some of my yellow, some violet. Lighten this up here. Okay, so I get some grayed colors here. And let's build this one so it's not as light as the white one there. There we go. And we'll just drop in a few little marks here. I'll just use the angle of my brush here. Drop in some ideas of some petals. This one doesn't have to have as much. Maybe a little bit more white, but I don't want to go that light here. Maybe a little bit more light onto it. We'll just soften the edge. So I'll push it in to soften that back edge. And then maybe a touch or two. So sometimes I'll do this. I'll just loosen that up. And while that's there and wet, sometimes I'll add a little extender, sometimes a little open medium. And then I just come back and swirl back through that to create some of that shadow that I like to have into that rose. Reading that shadow. And let's just model that up a bit more. And just move little half circles right in there. And let's put just a touch more here. There we go, a little heavier bit of light right into the front. See, what I'm doing is I'm not painting. You'll see other roses where I go in and specifically paint petals. And then you'll see other ones like this where I go in and I'm just painting the movement more than anything else. And it looks to everyone like petals, but I'm not specifically painting petals as much as the movement of the rose in and out. Here, these petals, this side goes in and out like that. We'll round that up a bit, and that creates the rose over on that side. Let's put a little warmer shadow up on that edge there. And we'll put in like some of this almost orangey color that we used up over here, maybe suggesting that color of that that tulip that's going to come right in there. That would be pretty. Get a bit of that in there. And then I never leave that, so I consider this a tint, almost a tint. It's a little heavier than a tint. A tint would be more transparent, but it's a color mark, and then I sink it into place with just a little bit of the light color right in there. And then that puts that color into that rose, adds a bit more interest to it. We'll add just a touch of that. This one now, I'm going to come in and specifically draw a petal right in here that I think these two collisions could be a little better marked right in there like that. And just soften that edge there. And so sometimes I will, but more than anything else, what I'm looking at here is the movement of these petals. Now I could take just a touch more white. Now why? A touch more white right here would help round, it would pull your eye this way and help round this flower just a bit more. So it could go a touch lighter, but I don't want to get so much that it competes too much with the queen here. So just a little bit there. And just a little bit more maybe right in here. There we go. Just like that. So it makes kind of a pretty flower. Let's put that tulip up there. So we'll go with a little cooler, maybe a little red, a little bit of the quinacridone here. Okay, we'll push some cooler color down here. Maybe there's another one out over here. Let's carry some of that color. It's beautiful color right there. Let's go right into some of that beautiful orange. And we'll start painting the tulip shape here. But we want to paint it very relaxed. You don't want 3 petals exactly the same. We're going to, sometimes the tulips come together. Like right here, I can just make this look like it's coming together. You don't need that much to say tulip. Here, let's put a bit of that color mark right over there. And then we'll lighten this up. And let's just... So here comes a petal right there. And see, I just let what happens happen. Maybe mix my two, not mix, but model these 2 yellows together. Tap them here. And then we'll pull right down. Maybe just the movement, the curving movement of that one right into that one. Then I'll add a little more red and let it calm down right over there. And a little bit, the 2 yellows, don't mix them up real well. A little bit of that red, a little bit of that white. Don't mix it up and tap it a couple times. And then you make the mark, you get the marks of for the tulip without having it too mixed. Does that make sense? That's what we're looking for. Let's drop in some ideas of leaves. Now I love the burnt sienna, you know that. I'm kind of in a rut with it late in the last couple of years. Burnt sienna, so I'll add a little bit of Diarylide to this. And getting some of those nice, beautiful green colors in there. And this one could have I like that warmth. This one could have a touch of the cooler greens in here as well. This composition will be able to have that. And I'll just touch some of those colors out. You can see what those greens do. I feel like I need maybe a deeper little shadow over there on that side. Let's put that in. Let's just go over here. I didn't even clean my brush of that green, so this will tone down some of this reddish color here. Maybe even a touch of the blue. Nice little gray color here. And just push that little bit more of a shadow there on that side. I could push this back a bit too. Maybe just a bit of that color into that one there. That's good. And I can take this, let's add a little bit of violet, which will cool this and darken this. I can really create with this darker green the contrast that I kind of want to see right in there. Okay, and maybe this comes in right here. So I'm doing what I call in some of the others, and if you look at the videos, if you go up there and look at some of my videos, I call this negative painting, and you'll see where I do it a lot. As a matter of fact, those of you that watch a lot of the channel, and you know, so many times I get it, do you paint glass? Do you paint apples? Do you do this? Yes, I do. They're all in there. There's 500 videos. It's hard for you to scroll through them. But if you go to my main page of the channel, and then while you're on the channel, go up there to the search, and just type in transparent glass or type in glass. It'll bring up videos that I try to name the videos pretty close to what I'm doing. So you'll find the videos that have some of that glass in there. Well, there's a technique I use which is great, which I just used a little bit of it here, called negative painting. And I did some videos on negative painting. And so you can go there, just put in negative painting and go see what those videos are like. Now let's just grab some of the movement here for stems. We'll drop that in just a bit, so I love that. We'll do some burnt sienna and some green. Some people always say, you know, always ask me, do you do little thorns? Yeah, I just do a little mark, a little triangle mark for thorns sometimes if I want to add them there. But we'll add just some lines of movement here. You know, maybe we'll drop in something else down here. Sometimes I just put in little marks, which is just lines like the little stems and stuff, and they add so much. And sometimes I'll step out, maybe right up over here. We'll put in a little line, and let's do a little lighter yellow-green. And a little lighter yellow-green kind of leaves out here, because I like to have different types of colors and things going on here. A little three. Now, sometimes if that's a little heavy, then I let it sit for a minute, and then I just pull back. Make sure, because you pick up paint, make sure you clean your finger, wipe it again, and you'll put in those softer edges. And what it does, and this is one thing that's really important, guys, why I use the acrylic canvas medium, the canvas prep that we developed. I developed that, and I developed it so that it creates a tooth, but it's somewhat absorptive. Does that make sense? Okay. So what it does when I wipe it like this, you see, it leaves what I call the memory of the color. I'm taking that color off, see, but some of it is gone into because of the matte tooth of the surface. Some of it's already gone in, so it's easy for me to take that out. And as it dries up, it gets a little harder, as you can see there. I can't take it off as easy, but that memory that it leaves on there is so important. That's what I do so many times in landscapes and receding edges. That's why I paint on this, and a lot of people ask me that. It's why I don't use gessos. Gessos contain a lot of vinyl. I know, I was a chemist behind a lot of them many, many, many years ago, okay? And I helped develop a lot of different kinds of gessos. And we'll put vinyl and stuff in there so that they stay flexible, especially for canvases and stuff. You don't want it to crack, so we keep that flexibility. But that vinyl repels water. And so what it does is you can wipe off a lot of that memory really quick and it's gone. So that's why I get that interest in there, you know, with that color is there, because it's how and why I use it. That's why. And so that's why I use these things that I do. Now, let's take a little bit of that violet. It's going to be a little dark. So and model this a bit. Let's come in here and model up a little more shadow right up in this area here where I want to paint some of those other pretty colors. And then we'll move that color down a bit here, maybe right there, okay? So the color carries through. Maybe even a little mark of it right up over here, just a mark. It's all it needs, so you pick up that color, right? Just so that you pick up that color in some of these places there, like that, okay? All right, now, then I'll come in and I'll lighten this up, change it a bit, maybe a little bit more blue. Let's change that a bit, maybe just a touch more blue. Not quite as light as I want to go yet, so we'll go to more of a medium color. And let's add a few smaller petals. Just almost like, you know, you watched me paint that hydrangea. So kind of think of when we were painting that hydrangea there, of painting a flower there. And then we'll step up a little lighter, maybe change that tone just a touch, maybe a little bit of the violet in there, just a touch. Let's go a little lighter, and let's build some lighter, larger petals right up here. And we don't need to paint a perfect flower. We can just have a few of them there, okay? And maybe a few touches of that light right out here. Let's make that petal look just a touch lighter. Right here. There. I don't need to make it too perfect. Just little touches of it here. Out into a few other little areas so we get that kind of flower. Little, like we say up there, little flowers. Let's put in a bit of the blues here, maybe just ideas of some of that right down here. Maybe just an idea of a little light one here coming down over there. Just a little bit of the light here. Just little marks of those lighter colors there. And a little burnt sienna, a little yellow, model that up right on the corner of the brush. Some touches that could be little flower centers. Just little wildflower centers there, okay? That's pretty good. We were gonna maybe put some daisy or something down here. I don't want to do too much of those tulips. They look kind of good, you know, enough. You know, that's the thing is, and if you start painting them too much, they'll compete with the queen, and we don't want to do that. But let's put a little stroke of some lighter green on the calyx here. Maybe a lighter little green stroke here. Through some of this, let's get a little more yellow-green. Maybe just a touch of light color here. Nice spring green here. And just wipe that back just a touch, but a good spring green. Touching through some of that. Maybe a touch lighter here. We can get more of a leaf edge here. That's kind of pretty. Here, little touches of it through there. That's not bad. Maybe some of that green. Right up through there. Just push that through. See, I just need the movement of that color. I don't need leaves as much as I need the color. See? And that's the way I love to paint these. I just love the color. Now, this is a real blurred edge. That's a real fine edge there. So I start to look through some of my painting at my edges and stuff. And this has started to dry up a little bit. Extender won't reconstitute it, but water will. So I add some water. See, I add some water to this, and I can reconstitute my grays again here. Even as they start to dry up. You can do this for a couple hours with the Heritage on your palette. And because it's designed to do that. So let's just push in a little more edge of that rose there. Maybe, again, I just loaded up onto the corner here, draw an edge. So maybe I want to have more of an edge right here, and I'll leave some of that green and push this right into the green. And what that does is it gives me a transparent look to that petal edge there. I kind of like that. All kinds of ways there that you can fix those and make those up. So really kind of pretty. Let's take some of this green. I'm going to thin this out. Maybe even a little this dirty original color. See how I can pick it up and maybe just a bit of the green and stuff all the way out here. some of those greens show up. Maybe a touch lighter green, just a motion of it there. I like that. Now, let's, we were going to put like a daisy or something right here. And let's just take some of this dirty color, some of these greens, grays, some of these reds, this nice dirty, I love all of these dirty colors here. Nice dirty, maybe a little bit of blue into that, which will cool that off a bit right down here. And let's just, and see, I'm using a very soft color to just lightly sketch that in. Maybe a bit of it comes over here. Okay. Yeah, daisy might, and see, what I want to do is keep this composition kind of squared up. So, but we might, and that, I'll let that daisy sit there for a second, just read that for a second. You might take a lighter little yellow and just push some of that around to help square up the composition here a bit. So you pick up the color. See, you just pick up the color and a bit of this color right out there. Maybe that's just right there. So you just pick up that color. See, a little touch of burnt sienna would be pretty out there. And right in here, maybe even almost like a reverse painting so that I bring forward that rose just a bit. That might be just a touch too much. Soften that edge there just a bit. Okay, now let's get some of that yellow burnt sienna. Diarylide and burnt sienna is such a pretty color. Let's grab some of that right in here. That's going to bring that color of those tulips right back down, right? And if you want this to stay wet so you can play with the daisy a little bit, add in, brush mix in some of your open medium. And let's just play the shape here of the daisy. Make sure you turn your brush so you make different kinds of shapes for these petals, right? And let's pull some smaller ones down here, and then they go to the sides. So the sides, if you're turning a daisy, the sides reach out longer than anything else. Now, what I'll do is I'll lift from the center out to soften the edges of those petals there. And then I'll pick up some more color here. Let's put in a bit more. Now we got to be careful because the daisy can overpower the queen rose really quickly. The Dutch always said that multi-petal flowers can overtake the rose really easy. So you got to be careful that you don't give them too much contrast, too much interest, and that's so very true. So we'll be a little careful, a little cautious here. How light we make this daisy here. We'll leave these rough little petals there, and maybe another little softer one right down here. Maybe this is just the idea of some others coming off over here. Some ideas. They don't need to be perfect because this is a whole bouquet of flowers, right? Let's put just a touch of that green burnt sienna in the center of that daisy. Those little daisies over there have this kind of greenish little center. We'll push that. Let's grab some yellow oxide right on the corner of our brush. And we'll tap that right into the top side. Maybe yellow oxide now and a little bit of Hansa right to the side that's closest to our roses, because we want your eye to go up there towards your roses, right? Okay, now let's go back a little bit of that yellow right into this white. Let's refine our petals again here, right into that. There we go. We'll soften out, so we'll go more gray, maybe a little bit of that violet. Let's thin this out a bit so it doesn't have as much power. And pull that on this side of the daisy, a little more shadow. So we get a light side and a shadow side. And let's pull some of this shadow out on some of these other little marks here. And that looks pretty good there. Now the question is, I like this little leaf here. We could put out some other little leaves. Boy, this is painting up kind of fast, huh? So we'll push out, push out, push out a long little leaf. You can let it sit for a second and leave just a memory, but little shapes of the leaves. Sometimes I'll take some burnt sienna and that green, a little bit of extender so it's thin, and we can push in some other shapes of other leaves here, pulling down. It's a wildflower, so you can have some variations to the leaves there, right? And it brings out anything. So I can negative paint right in here, some of those greens, and bring the edge of that tulip a little bit more forward. Or a little touch right in here, just so you see some of the movement here of little things. Now you can still see that powerful line, that X that's coming through there. Still just ever so slightly. If you know where to look for it, you'll see it. Let's do a little negative painting right over here. That brings that edge of that rose right there. Pull that out. I like that. Let's do some more just stems here. Stems, you can't go wrong with stems. All of these flowers and stuff here need stems, right? Can't go wrong with those stems. You need them in there. And that works. I want to put some more, and I think what I want to do is we'll take a violet, not quite that dark. We'll take a softer violet, and we'll touch some of that in there first. And then I'll pick a lighter color here and tap into it quite a bit here and paint it up again. This is going to give me more interest up into this flower. Maybe another one right in here. And so you can see I get more mottled interest into that flower. And so when I feel it, you can see the difference between the two flowers. Here it's more just light and dark. There you see more mottled interest. Does that make sense? And so I'm looking through my composition, and if I see something in there that's just like, that's just a light blue petal, I need to have more interest in it, I'll do this. I'll just take this and I'll touch through into that petal, and then I'll grab some lighter color while that is wet and just pull through. Maybe I do it a couple times. So here I could do that one again, maybe a touch more. Maybe just a bit of the open medium, which will cause it to stroke a little different. That's pretty. Oh, look at that little bit of mottled quinacridone that came out. Really pretty on that one. Now let's just intensify that center. Tap a little bit of Hansa, a little bit of yellow oxide. There we go. Intensify that center just a bit. There, that's kind of pretty. Kind of a pretty little spring flowers one here. Now see, you can look through, so those little tulip shapes that out there, these could be smaller. I mean, they're just like little flowers out there. You could go through and lighten some of them up a bit if you want. You know, so let's just see if I want to put a lighter little touch of a flower. See, a lighter petal in there just adds a ton more interest. Maybe, and I call these little things, I like to call these things the little marks of the sparks of color through, through your painting. I like to put in sparks of color. Let's first put in some darker burnt sienna and green. Let's do a little negative painting here, which will pop that one forward right there. And then let's put in a spark of a little brighter mottled yellow-green right over that. Maybe a little bit brighter yet, a little bit of white right in there. Just some of that more, I don't need to make, if I put a perfect leaf in there, it competes against the daisy and some of that other color. I really don't need it, so I don't think I'm going to add it, but you could. It's up to you. Okay. And so I'm just going to come through and just put little marks of stuff so you see some of that color. Now, this one rose here is nice and soft. I like those little leaves sticking up there. I don't want to make mirror images, but we could make a little bit more of a leaf coming out like that. Longer one there. Maybe leave just the memory of that edge there. That's kind of neat. Leave that one out a little further there. There like that. Yeah, and see that little blue, we see it up over here, so if it's a little lost right there, so I start to check, how is my colors moving through my composition? And I could have this blue expressed just a bit more out there, just like that, see? And it just takes that off, it just adds a bit of that. Doesn't always have to be a flower or anything. It could be a mark of a color, but you've seen me so many times, like pull out of here and then just pull those colors down to increase the color area or the movement or something. And maybe I want to just give some more ideas of flowers fading off there, like that. And that works. Maybe that's such a pretty blue. Maybe just a bit of it here on these roses. The rose is the queen. She should carry a lot of this, right? She carries a lot of these colors. And let's put a touch more. I'll use a little extender and some yellow, some very bright yellow here. Let's just add a little more warmth right across. See, this is a glaze. So most of that's dried up, so you can see it shifting it a little bit yellow. And I'll do that right before I put on some bright white that then becomes the powerful stroke there. Sets and builds the list, not quite as light, but almost as light. Because this one wants to be queen. There we go. Maybe still a little tacky, but we can do it. Take just a little yellow, maybe a little Diarylide in it. Hit that edge just a bit, and then just a touch more light. There. That's kind of works. I love that roughness of it. Could have a bit of a brighter yellow green right in there. See, I hit that wet paddle edge. You go, oh, don't worry, we're professionals. We can do this. Okay, we'll take a little bit of burnt sienna and green and negative paint around and clean up that edge. Make it look like we know what we're doing there. Sometimes it's little accidents like that, and you go back and fix it, and it looks a lot better than it did before. So let's just add a bit of this little marks of color through here, which increases our contrast within the painting. And then you got a nice, very nice kind of a springy kind of painting here. The blues transferring. I could have a little bit more over there, but you don't want to always make it even too, so that's not too bad. Colors and movement of your colors. You can soften it out on the outside edges if you want to. Add a little bit more, contrast. Take it to where you want it to go. I'm going to add just a bit more here. Right there like that. I love that look. of that draggy look of a composition. Maybe a little bit more of the greens right here. Just pulling down here. Those nice springy kind of greens. I didn't do too much with that daisy here. Let's just pop it up a bit here. There we go. Just some little petals to say maybe that's a turned little daisy there. There you go. Just a little, maybe a more defined little petal right off to this side. So you get the idea that that's a daisy. And a bit of the center. Boy, just about an hour to paint this. And it's not too bad. You know, a painting like this, when I first started out, well, first, a painting like this, when I started out 40 years ago, it would take me about a week to do this. And then I got faster and faster, and, now, of course, I can do them pretty quickly. But it's been a process, and more than anything else, it's a process of confidence. Just getting the confidence to paint it. That's the biggest thing. Confidence to paint it, paint the mark, leave the mark, That's where the majority of your experience is going to come from, just developing confidence with your painting, leaving a mark and not questioning it. Just go, it's going to be all right. And you keep going, and by the time you get done and you paint all of these elements, the whole thing just comes to life. And it's all of the elements together that are bringing the life and energy to your painting. It's all of them together, coming together. I'm going to take a real soft, kind of dirty green here and just push some of that element out there like that. Yeah. And I don't think I'll lighten up those other things there. Kind of like the casual nature and the spring flowers. You can define it up and do a little bit more if you want, but no, I kind of like that. I think I will sign that one and call it done. Nice casual, boom, colors, yellows and blues. You could have a little bit more red if you want. You could put a little more red in some of that. If those of you like Deanne out there that loves red, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, and that's all up to you. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. So there's your spring flowers. Now we'll go into some westerns and some wildlife as well. I'll get those up in the next couple of days. But hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of spring flower. You could put like a little bit of Edelweiss or so small, baby's breath or something like that, little sparks. That would be really neat, I think, in this composition as well. Lighten the whole thing up. Just leave some negative space around it, okay? And you can take that up bigger. Take it up bigger and make it like 3 roses and a bunch of daisies and stuff coming down. Have some fun with it. It could be very nice, okay? All right. Oh, geez Louise, I'm going to do it right now because I just saw that as I was saying goodbye to you guys. I'm going to do it. A little bit of blue on this daisy right in here. There. But don't forget to, and it could be just a touch lighter so it's a bit more of a spark of color. Boom, right in there. See what that does? That whole side, look at my hand. Jeez, the whole side was so warm, and that little spark of cool. Don't forget those warms and cools, okay? All right, now I'm done, okay? Thanks very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and make sure you click that little bell so that you know when I launch some videos, because I launch them all different kinds of times. And those over you on the membership, I'm a little bit behind, but I'm posting some of my photos, so I'll make sure I post finals of this and some reference photos and stuff, and get the last ones up here in the next day or so too for you to have those to look at. Just go over to the community page, sign in, and you'll see those photos and stuff there. And as always, if you have any kinds of questions or anything, drop me a comment down below and I'll be happy to answer it. I try to I read all of them every day, but I don't have time to get to all of your questions and stuff, but I try to. And so I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys back here on the next one, okay? Thanks so much. Appreciate you supporting the channel. Thanks. Bye-bye.